But first, a call to action on one of the most contentious issues in American life today. Thousands of teenage activists are calling for tougher gun laws. Meanwhile, the CEOs of the biggest gun makers rarely give interviews and live lives far removed from the whole issue. But they're still profiting from the biggest unregulated gun market in the developed world. Well, the multi-billion-dollar U.S. firearms industry has been largely shielded by the U.S. Constitution, which allows people the right to own a gun. But in the wake of the hashtag Never Again, the investment community is also waking up to its role in the weapons economy. The calls have been growing as well for Wall Street to dump gun stocks. Fund managers, including BlackRock, have said they are having another look at their relationship with gun makers. And more than a dozen companies have ended partnerships with the National Rifle Association, the pro-gun lobby. The march in Washington is led by students from the school in Florida where 17 people were killed last month. Andy Gallagher reports on their journey to protest.
We'll take your name down, and if we have any extras, we can give you at the end.
In the weeks since this community lost 17 lives to one of the worst school shootings in U.S. history, the push for change has been relentless. The March for Our Lives demonstration will be the biggest protest yet, and one led by the students from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
You guys are the change that is going to be the tipping point to help that happen.
As they make their way to Washington to demand gun reform, many are excited about the global response to their cause.
Just to see the unity of our country and our world, because the march is now on all seven continents, which I think is awesome. So I'm just glad to see that all happen.
We just want to graduate, spread love.
The national debate these children started has led to gun reform in Florida, but students say they won't stop until assault weapons are banned. It's an ambitious goal, but one organizers say isn't beyond this generation.
When someone underestimates you, you can come in from a position of power that they're not expecting. And that's really what's happening. So I'm just, riding the tide and watching, and it's awesome.
The fight for what campaigners call common sense gun reform will be long and difficult. Parents say the March for Our Lives protest is just the beginning.
They're very aware of what's happening in their surroundings, what has happened and what they need to do. So we're proud of them speaking up and really taking charge.
Perfect.
In the hours before the march, the message from these students is simple.
I hope that this gets to every single person, as much people as we can, so we can finally make a change in this country.
Andy Gallagher reporting for us there. Well, joining us now via Skype from Raleigh, North Carolina, is Jeffrey Moore, senior analyst with Global Risk Insights. Thanks very much for being with us. Now, just how lucrative is the gun industry in America? I mean, how tied are they into the whole economy there?
The gun manufacturers and accessory and retailers have a pretty sizable economic impact overall. It's about $50 billion directly and indirectly between gun manufacturers and retailers. You've got about $6.5 billion in taxes that are paid every year, and about 300,000 individuals employed either directly or indirectly through the gun industry. So it is a significant impact on America's economy, but relatively small compared to a lot of other areas across the spectrum. But it is a long-lived and established industry that likely won't be going anywhere anytime soon.
And from an economic perspective, how do you see where do you see the gun industry going under the Trump administration?
Yeah, well, we've got a curious situation where you had 8 years of President Obama, a couple of large, highly public mass shootings, and some fears that gun regulations were going to come down in a very big way. And that drove gun sales and ammunition sales through the roof, really, especially after 2012, the Sandy Hook massacre. There were fears from the gun lobby and from gun owners that they may issue those regulations and some bans in cases. And the revenues and stock prices for those gun manufacturers really went haywire to the upside. And continued doing that through the remainder of his presidency. The day after Trump was elected, the stocks of these gun manufacturers actually took a big hit in the days following his election and have since come off pretty strongly. And the revenues have done this as well. There doesn't seem to be the political risk, the political fear that regulation will be coming down. And as a result, those have come off their highs, but also with President Obama and the feverish focus on whether or not he may do something to take guns away, may have pulled a lot of demand forward to those years. So you may see the gun industry enter a more natural ebb and flow of a business cycle from here on out.
One of the issues that comes to mind when you look at the economic aspect of this is this whole idea of ethical investments. Talk on Wall Street and among investors of pulling their money out of stocks that are directly or indirectly tied to the gun industry. Is that something that if it builds up could have an effect?
Yeah, that certainly could have an effect. And just yesterday, we had Citigroup announce that their Citibank operations for their commercial clients, they will no longer support commercial clients in the gun industry or the retailing industry of guns that sell guns of any kind to individuals under 21 years of age. So when you start having these commercial pressures from the banking and finance providers that give those services to the gun makers and the gun retailers, if they're going to be changing policies, much like the retailers have already started with Walmart and some other sporting goods stores raising that age to 21, you'll probably see a spreading effect of at least raising the age. So if things can't get done in Washington, you'll start to see private businesses take that own initiative to raise the age of purchasing guns.
Good to speak with you. Jeffrey Moore, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.